How could you have known that a simple trip filled with hope for a better life would turn into an unimaginable nightmare? You were a mother, full of dreams for your children, traveling to Mubi in northeastern Nigeria so they could finally return to school. But at a military checkpoint, soldiers ask where your husband is. When you tell them he has been detained, they take you into custody too. What follows is a journey through the darkest rooms of detention, separated from your children, imprisoned without trial and left to wait, year after year, for a freedom that seemed like a distant dream. Welcome to Vestiges of Violence. Here, we talk about survivors. For Human Angle, I am Sabika. "11 years ago, Aisha Ishaq was a 25-year-old trader living in Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. She owned 2 shops in the Karmajiji area of the city, selling a range of goods, from food items to kitchen utensils and fabrics. Despite her hard work, the money she earned from her shops was only enough to cover her family's basic needs. She could not afford to pay her children's school fees. Her husband, Kabir, was popularly known as a simple, hardworking tailor. But he had been arrested under the suspicion of being connected to Boko Haram, a terrorist group. It was said that he visited a place where the group was rumored to frequently hang out. Aisha does not believe he had any ties to them. He was just a tailor, she says, a man trying to support his family. When he was detained, the responsibility of the family fell on Aisha's shoulders. It was during this time that a relative advised her to consider moving to Mubi in Adamawa State, where the cost of living was lower. There, her children could attend school without the heavy financial burden she faced in Abuja. With hope for a better future, she decided to make the move. On their way to Mubi, their vehicle was stopped at a military checkpoint. The soldiers asked where her husband was, and when she told them that he had been detained, they arrested her too. From the checkpoint, Aisha and her children were taken to Mubi and then to Yola, where they were held at the barracks. She spent a few months with her children there until one day, the soldiers came, took photographs of them, and separated them. Aisha would later learn that her children were sent to military school as she was being transferred to the Wawa military cantonment in north-central Nigeria, where she would be detained for 11 years without trial. For the first 2 years, Aisha and other detainees were handcuffed in pairs. They ate together, slept together, and even went to the bathroom together. They were confined in a small, dark room, so small that they couldn't stretch properly, and when they turned, they would bump into each other. Eventually, they were moved to a more spacious room, but they were almost never allowed to go outside except when one was sick and needed medical attention. On a couple occasions, they were given false hope of freedom.
There was one time we were told we would be released. We were taken outside. We had our hair made and were so happy because we were not allowed outside and freedom was close. But then, silence. Nothing happened. We were taken back to our cells. In fact, we spent 6 more years after that.
The day Aisha and 7 other detainees were released started on a rainy morning. They were called out to a room where their photographs, fingerprints, and swab tests were taken. But these were procedures they had gone through before, so they knew not to raise their hopes too high. So when Aisha saw that her brother had come to take her home, she broke down in disbelief. It was finally happening. She was finally free. When she came home, so much had changed over the 11 years she was away. One of her sons, Muhammad, had passed away, after a brief illness, and her sister had also died shortly after Aisha was detained. The new Naira notes are foreign to her, and Aisha does not know how to operate a smartphone. She says she feels like a stranger in her own community. She has been disconnected from it for so long, she is relearning how to fit in.
I just keep staring. Even when I go to the market, I just stare. Everything is so different and unfamiliar, and I have a lot on my mind.
What bothers her the most is how she is going to build her life. She has taken a loan to take care of herself and her kids, whom she has reunited with, but it is not sustainable to live in debt.
When we were released, we were promised capital to start a business, but we've not been given anything almost 3 months later.
Aisha says that her experience has scarred her, that she will never forget the injustice that was done to her. But right now, what she desires deeply is to be provided with capital that will help her rebuild her life. This, she says, will lighten her burden greatly. This story was reported by Hawa Shafi Nuhu, scripted by Sabiqa Bello. Multimedia editor is Anthony Asamuta, and executive producer is Ahmed Tilkida. In order to protect the identities of survivors, we use voice actors for this episode. If you or anyone you know have a story to share on vestiges of violence, do not hesitate to get in touch with us.